If you're a user of TikTok, then I expect you see ads all the time for the latest study apps. The algorithm even thinks that I might be doing my exams right now, so in amongst clips of my favourite video games, every 6th or 7th video is also one of these ads. There is one app that I see mentioned far more than any other though.
Have you ever heard of Medley AI?
Medley AI. Medley.
Medley.ai.
Medley AI.
Medley.
Medley. Medley. Medley AI.
Medley.
Medley. Medley AI.
Medley.
Medley.
Given that almost every creator is promoting this app right now, I decided to take a look, and in this video I'm going to share with you some of the things that you're not being told about Medley AI. Before I do though, here's a brief disclaimer. This video reflects my personal opinions and commentary based on my own experiences, research and interpretation. It's intended for review and discussion purposes only. Viewers should conduct their own research and form their own judgments. All information is presented in good faith and to the best of my knowledge at the time of recording. When you do work on Medley, the AI will mark it for you. This sounds great, but it would be a problem if it wasn't particularly accurate. The AI even has a note accepting that it can be incorrect sometimes. I decided to test some questions on the Understanding Algebraic Notation section to see how well it marked my answers. Medley marked this question correct even though it's wrong. It also said that this was fine despite me deliberately doing it the wrong way around in the method. It also gave me 0 marks for this question even though it's completely fine, and the same for this one and this one. For this question it only gave me 1 of the marks when it should have given me both of them. For this question it told me it was wrong even though it literally matches the mark scheme, so I just wrote the same thing again and then suddenly it was right. For this one it said it's not good enough for full marks, so it told me to put brackets around the second part, which by the way are not needed, so I did this anyway and it told me it was correct despite the fact that the mark scheme actually doesn't have brackets at all. Then we have this question here where you're supposed to do quite a lot of work to get all 3 marks, but I just copied the answer that Medley gave me and it said it was perfect. You can even write loads of rubbish here to get 4 marks, or this, or even this. And believe it or not, this isn't even the most ridiculous thing I found when it came to marking on Medley. I saw this Reddit post here about how a user entered the exact same English essay and got 3 different marks for it. I thought that that couldn't be the case, so I decided to have a try myself. I went to this question and got ChatGPT to write me an answer. I took this answer here and submitted it 3 times. The first time I scored 28 marks, but then I submitted the exact same essay again and got 27, and then the exact same one again and got 31. It makes you wonder what Medley's even doing when it's marking these essays. Maybe it's just guessing. Without realizing it, I'd essentially created a new game that I like to call Medley Roulette, and I'm afraid to say that I got a little bit addicted. So I actually entered this essay into Medley a total of 100 different times, and these were the scores, with the maximum score being 35, and here's a graph of all of the different scores it gave. Strangely, it never gave 33 marks, but the range of marks is huge. It goes all the way from 27 up to 35. How can you trust Medley to mark your work when this happens? If you want to give Medley Roulette a try and see if you can beat my score, then I'll pin a comment below with the essay so you can give it a try yourself. Now you probably think this is where it ends, but it does in fact get even worse. When playing Medley Roulette, I accidentally entered my answer for this question into the next question, question 2. Despite the fact it was on a completely different topic, Medley gave me 31 out of 40. So I decided to enter my essay about the digital world as the answer for every single one of the questions in this unit, and every single time I scored relatively well. So I'm not really sure what Medley's actually marking here. It made me think about what other things might score high marks, so I decided to go and get the lyrics of one of my favourite songs, Mambo No. 5 by Lou Bega. I entered this as the answer to the first question about the digital world, and I was surprised to find that this scored 4 out of 40. Now I don't know much about English language, but this was surprising to me. I then spent an amount of time that I'm not willing to disclose entering various different texts into Medley to see what scores it would give. The highest score I managed to get with a song was Boney M's Rasputin that scored 6 out of 40. I wonder if you can beat that. The entire script of the B movie scored 4 out of 40, and amazingly I did manage to find something that scored even higher than my original best score of 35. I entered the speech for the Queen's Christmas message in the year 2000, and I was amazed to find that this scored 40 out of 40. I'm sure the late Queen would be very happy with this, but it doesn't fill me with confidence that Medley is marking particularly accurately. During the sign-up process, Medley is keen to let you know that it knows your specification. In fact, it states this in multiple places on their website, and seems to be a feature of influencer ads as well. They even go so far to point out that other apps don't follow exam board specifications, so they must be pretty confident in their claim. Within literally minutes of being on the platform though, I managed to find issues. In fact, there are so many of them that I've had to edit this video down because it was far too long. Some of these are so wrong that unless you checked yourself, you'd think I was making it up. Here's just a few of them so you can get an idea of what's going on. Medley's AQA textbook teaches higher students how to rationalize a 2-term denominator and how to complete the square when the coefficient of x squared is not 1. It also gives plenty of practice questions on these. Unfortunately, the official AQA teaching guidance states that these will not be assessed. The textbook also discusses stem and leaf diagrams, which is not on the AQA specification. OCR has a nice list of topics on their website which are not assessed in this course but are in some others. For example, this includes set notation for Venn diagrams, frequency polygons, function notation, and the ambiguous case of the sign rule. Unfortunately, Medley's OCR textbook and practice questions include these. We have Venn diagrams with set notation, frequency polygons, function notation, and not just any function notation, we even do inverse functions, and composite functions, and strangely even multivariate functions, and of course the ambiguous case of the sign rule. None of this will be assessed if your exam board is OCR. For Edexcel on the higher tier, they encourage you to use the formula for the equation of a straight line when doing a line of best fit. More worryingly though than all of this is the amount of content they test you on which is literally in the A-level course. This includes the equation of a circle not centered at 0, 0, the trapezium rule, odd and even functions, advanced probability, logarithms, and not just any logarithms, natural logarithms which you would cover in year 13, and the fundamental theorem of arithmetic. So if much of this is at A-level, why is Medley including and assessing this at GCSE? Believe it or not, there's even A-level content in the GCSE Foundation part of Medley's website, including the magnitude of a vector, calculating outliers, linear interpolation, position vectors, parallelism, collinearity, sampling frames, parameters, and all of the sampling methods from A-level. I'll say this once again, this is from A-level and it's in the Foundation GCSE part of the Medley website. What is going on? In fact, half of the higher GCSE is also shown to Foundation students. For example, functions, box plots, cumulative frequency, histograms, vectors, instantaneous rates of change, upper and lower bounds, quadratic inequalities, the sine and cosine rule, conditional probability, rationalizing denominators, quadratic nth term, and you get the idea. There are also many examples of non-standard notation being used, like this one for perpendicular, this for parallel, or this for a plane. And possibly the worst is using this line here for a recurring decimal, something that we don't tend to do here in the UK. It's almost as though this textbook hasn't been written by a human. Dare I say it, could it have been written by AI? The problems also extend to the equation sheet. If you select AQA Higher as your course, then it gives you the equation sheet for the Further Maths GCSE instead. This is a completely different course, which means there are some formulas that you do need which are missing, and then there are also these which you don't need. When I selected my course's Edexcel Foundation, it gave me the equation sheet for Higher, which once again means there are all these formulas here that I don't need to know, and when I selected OCR, there wasn't an equation sheet altogether. What makes all of this even stranger is on Medley's own website, it says that all of their notes and questions are quality checked by experienced teachers for alignment to your exam board and coverage of every point on the specification. Now, I can only think of two possible reasons for this. Either Medley needs a rebrand because this is just not true, or the people they've selected to do this just haven't done a good enough job. But this really does matter when there are potentially hundreds of thousands of students on this platform being shown the wrong material. Medley claims that their AI tutor will identify exactly which topics cost you marks and create you a personalised revision plan. It also says it can identify your weakest topics. My experience talking to the AI chat was it cannot tell me which topics I need to work on and is only ever interested in the question that's currently on the screen. Whenever I asked it what my weaknesses were or what topics I need to do next, it crumbled and failed to do so, always circling back to Medley's own questions. The fact is, the AI here is really inflexible and only trained to answer the question that's on the screen. In fact, even when it helps you with those questions that it does know, I would argue that ChatGPT does a better job. You can see from my chat here with Medley that it does get me to the right answer, but that's because it knows this question. But here is ChatGPT's response when I asked it to teach me exactly the same one, a question that it wouldn't have been previously familiar with. You see, Medley can only answer the questions that are on its own platform, but ChatGPT will answer pretty much any maths question I give to it. The huge difference between them though is shown in the final line here. ChatGPT asks me if I want to generate more questions like this one, or some that are even trickier. It even did a really good job of this. When I asked Medley to do the same thing, it admitted that it couldn't. Given the amount of problems I found so far, you'd probably be asking yourself why all of these study influencers are promoting Medley. I mean, it's completely possible that many of them don't even use the platform at all, so wouldn't have discovered what I found. However, the obvious motivator here is money. I want to be clear at this point though that I don't blame these influencers for taking the money. If I was in school and someone offered me hundreds of pounds to create a short video ad, I'd be making Medley videos every day of the week. This won't be a small amount of money to a student. Everyone has a price. If Medley were to offer me £1 million, I would happily change my name to Medley, and I'd even get a Medley tattoo. I was interested to know how much Medley would be able to pay creators, so I contacted them and said that I was interested in promoting their product. Strangely, they replied to me, and I even had a 30-minute meeting with their founder, despite the fact that I've been very critical about Medley on social media before. After the meeting, they offered me £600 for free short videos, but I expect other creators are paid much more. One creator I know even confessed to me they were paid £300 by Medley per video, and they are far from the biggest creator promoting them right now. If you check Medley's Reddit, you'll also see they make several posts in student-based subreddits about paying creators to advertise their platform, and you can see there's quite a lot of money involved. The most worrying thing from this, though, is that their criteria for promotion isn't anything about your educational background or expertise, but just how well you can yap in front of a camera. We live in a world now where the number of followers tends to be more important than your actual qualifications and experience. For instance, I've not seen any teachers actively promoting Medley, but I've seen plenty of students, and I can understand why you'd be easily swayed. Many of them begin their video by telling you that they got all grade 9s or all A stars in their exams. I mean, obviously they're not going to put this at the end of their video, that wouldn't make any sense, but having good grades doesn't mean everything. There are many students who got a grade 4 or 5 in their exams that will be able to give you just as much advice as someone who got grade 9s. Using a study app also doesn't mean you're going to suddenly jump to a grade 9 as well. It really depends on your starting point. Now, you may find some influencers that do claim that they genuinely use Medley. I mean, it would be strange if they said they didn't, considering they're promoting it, but that's fine. What I do find strange though is lots of their videos tend to show a completely bare insights page, indicating that they haven't made much progress on the platform at all. If they had been actively using this platform, this would be full of green little boxes. I'd also ask you to consider if you heard them shouting up about Medley before money was on the table. What do you think will happen if Medley stops paying them? Do you think you'll continue to hear about it? Medley doesn't just market on TikTok either. They use Facebook and their website, and they love to make use of statistics to show how good they are. I find it confusing though because some of these statistics seem to contradict each other. For example, they use the 74% many times on different adverts here. First of all, it's 74% of students broke the cycle. Then 74% of students improved in 8 weeks. Then 74.1% improved by at least 1 grade across core subjects. And then 74% jumped by 2+ grades. But then here it says only 40% gained 2+ grades. Then on their own website it's 76%, and it's within 1 month. Their website also has a whole load of impressive statistics but no evidence about where it came from. It could be, for example, they only asked certain types of students or students from certain schools. Without any information about where this data came from, we can't really hold it in high regard. Medley also claim that they directly caused the grade increases, but in reality there'll be many other factors at play that contribute towards someone's grade. Medley's marketing also includes their Trustpilot rating, which you can find at this page here. It's currently 4.5 out of 5. What you may not be aware though is that in Trustpilot's terms and conditions, it says don't offer incentives in connection with writing or editing reviews. This includes, for example, discounts, promo codes, prize draw entries, refunds, freebies, or any other benefit connected to your business for leaving a review. What this essentially means is you can't reward people for leaving a good review for your business. This makes sense because reviews could otherwise give off a wrong or misleading impression about a company, which is very strange because Medley sent me this email here, which said that the first 200 people who leave a great review on Trustpilot will win a free month. This seems to go directly against the terms and conditions of Trustpilot. If you were someone that was considering purchasing Medley and you were reading these reviews, you would have no idea that these people writing positive ones were being rewarded for doing so. When you take a look at some of the lower scoring reviews though, you'll see people have said some of the things that I've said in this video. Medley also really doesn't seem to like private tutors, often pointing out the price difference between them and private tutors, although I'm not really sure who spends £500 a month on private tuition. What really seems strange though is this comment about how tutors just guess what you need to do. I think this is quite a ridiculous comment. No tutor starts their lesson by, say, spinning the wheel of maths to decide what they're going to cover. It just doesn't make any sense at all. In fact, if we want to make a comparison between Medley and private tutors based on what I've shown you in this video, then it appears that Medley doesn't know your specification. It doesn't seem like it knows how to mark accurately, the AI says that it can't generate any new questions, and it doesn't seem to know what your weaknesses are. I would argue that a private tutor can do all of these things easily. Perhaps if Medley spent more time improving the quality of their service, they wouldn't need to be so critical of private tutors. Another thing I found in Medley's marketing was it says that they have unlimited access to over 10,000 exam-style questions for each topic of the exam board specification. I also watched a video from a study influencer saying that there are seemingly infinite questions available. I found this strange given when I did my questions on algebraic notation, I only found 86. In fact, when I added up all of the questions from all of the parts of the math specification, I only found 4,108, and this is across the entire specification, not just one topic. Maybe there's something that I don't understand here, but to me it doesn't seem as though Medley has as many questions available as they claim to do so. The final thing I want to talk about in terms of Medley's marketing is going on right now. You'll often see adverts about Medley's Christmas mocks. They're keen to tell you that there are only 1,000 spaces available, and this is repeated on their website as well. Unless, of course, you refer free friends to the platform or pay for the platform yourself. I find it strange that a company that claims to have over 200,000 users doesn't have space for more than 1,000 people to complete mocks. It's almost as though they're trying to pressure you into joining up as quickly as possible so that you don't miss out. You know, a bit like if you're buying something with online shopping, you'll see statements like this which are designed to get you to purchase the product now because it might not be there in the future. Now, I can't say for sure if there are more or less than 1,000 spaces, only Medley really know this. Although I suspect it's not exactly 1,000 because I have one of those spaces too. I've signed up for the Medley Christmas mocks and I received this lovely ticket. When you read the details of the ticket though, it does say that it does not predict or guarantee your performance in official examinations. I wonder why that's there. Something you won't be aware of is I did the Medley mocks in September as well. My honest impressions of these is they're not any better than any free materials that are available on the internet. In fact, I think they are lower quality in many places. In fact, they're very similar in style and quality to Medley's own practice papers. Now, I can't show you all of the details of this because they're behind a paywall, but I can show you some samples for review purposes. One thing I noticed was, despite your exam board, the presentation of the questions is all very similar. This one's for Edexcel, this one's for OCR, and this one's for AQA. You can see they are all written in the style of an AQA question. This question for OCR was also particularly confusing because it asked you to solve a quadratic equation on question 3 of a foundation paper, which would typically be at the end. It also says that this question tests your skills in algebra, and I've never seen anything like that before in an exam question. The AQA papers were also filled with multiple choice questions. One of the papers I opened actually had 14 different questions, which is strange because since 2023, AQA has made it clear they use multiple choice questions sparingly. And in fact, in most recent exams, you'll see there's hardly ever multiple choice questions anymore. Not to mention, we're relying on the AI to mark these mocks accurately. Something that I think I've shown in the video is certainly questionable. The idea behind a platform like Medley is certainly not a bad one, but it depends entirely on how well it's executed. When you have a platform that shows you text like this when you ask it a question, or is regularly failing to connect to the service, then it's not really a platform that I would ever recommend to my students or followers. The truth is, if Medley was a good platform, I'd be happy to recommend it without taking any money. But I also want to warn them about things that I think could be potentially damaging. I'm not at all convinced that anybody's actually checking what's on the Medley platform. I mean, here are a few more examples of bits of text that I found inside the Medley textbook. You can see it's all just a load of mess. In this video I've covered a lot of points, but for me personally, Medley is nothing more than a bunch of questions and an AI chatbot. The problem is those questions are sometimes not suitable for your exam, and the AI is not particularly flexible or doesn't mark accurately. I cannot see why anyone would want to pay for something like this when you could use, say, Maths Genie and ChatGPT for free. In my opinion, these two resources do a much better job than Medley does for maths at least. I should point out that I have no affiliation whatsoever with either of these two services. In fact, Maths Genie would be considered one of my most obvious and direct competitors. I will continue to recommend them though, as I have done for many years for my own students because they produce high quality materials. You should also remember that making progress in your studies can be a difficult journey. There isn't some easy shortcut, and exams are certainly not pay to win. It's not something you can do in say 20 minutes a day like Medley seems to claim you can. When you're watching a promotional video online, always consider doing your own research first. Don't just trust what you're being told because someone got strong grades or they have a lot of followers. By the way, I got all A's and A stars in all of my GCSEs and A-levels.